It has been a big day for the White House press corps, who have probed Karine Jean-Pierre on the White House's protection of Joe Biden. Not one, but three reporters have asked the White House press secretary today about Joe Biden's lack of question-taking from reporters, mostly in reference to the fact that President Biden will be travelling to the UK and Ireland for a state visit tomorrow, and there are so far no plans to hold a press conference for the travelling media. But even when Joe Biden is in the US, he has been known to hardly ever call on reporters to ask their questions, and when he does, he uses a cheat sheet of a pre-approved list. This has angered reporters in the last few years who feel like they aren't getting transparency from Joe Biden. So much so that in September 2021, White House reporters launched a formal objection after the president refused to take any questions when he was holding a meeting with then UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. But things seem to have not really improved. Today, Grey television correspondent John Decker served Karine Jean-Pierre a heated question when he asked the press secretary whether the administration was trying to protect the president from their questions.
And the lack of press conference that we see in general from this White House. I represent a news organization that owns 113 television stations, and a question that I'm often asked, and I don't know the answer to, so I'll ask you that question. Is the administration trying to protect the president from our questions? Please, answer
Absolutely
that question.
not. Absolutely not.
So why the lack of any interaction in a formal setting to have a press conference?
I mean, the president takes shouted questions. I understand, John. I understand. I've dealt with this question about 3 times already. I understand. It is the job of you all to ask this question to me. Totally get that, and that's not a problem at all. But certainly, the president many times has stood in front of all of you, has taken questions on his own, because he wanted to see what was all on your minds. He wanted to see what the questions you all were going to ask him, and he wanted to answer them directly. That has happened multiple times, many times during this administration, and that will certainly continue to be. When it comes to a formal press conference, I don't have anything to share with you at this time.
John Decker then hits back, making the comparison between Joe Biden's question-taking and his predecessors. That's because President Biden has held fewer press conferences than the 5 immediate leaders before him and conducted less sit-down interviews too. The press secretary claimed that Biden actually does take reporters' shouted questions, which prompted the journalists in the room to disagree.
Recognize that as it relates to prior administrations, the president's predecessor, President Obama, President George W. Bush, I've been here long enough to have covered President Bill Clinton. This is not the norm. The norm is we do get an opportunity to ask the questions to the president about domestic and foreign policy issues in a formal setting at some point. And you choose that point, but we haven't had that opportunity in quite some time.
So I'll say this, it is also unprecedented that a president takes as many shouted questions as this president has, and he has.
I know the last administration, and I'll tell you, almost every day I'm just
Okay,
building
well,
over.
we'll certainly get the data and share that with all of you. I hear, John, I hear your question, I heard Zeke's question, I hear you on the press conference, on a formal press conference. We get this probably every couple of months when you guys ask us about a formal press conference. I don't have anything to share with all of you at this time, and I'll just leave it there.
Joe Biden will kick off his trip in Belfast to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. When the president visits other countries or state leaders come to the White House, he hardly ever holds joint press conferences. This week seems to be no different, with there being no plans, according to Karine Jean-Pierre, for Biden to partake in question-taking.
Why can't the president take questions from the press?
Right now, we just don't have anything on the books for a press conference at this moment. The president always loves to take your questions, shouted questions. Look, when it comes to these types of events, as you know, being the president of at one point of the association, these are relationships that we have, right, with these countries. So when it comes to 2+2s or anything like that, clearly that is not just on us, that is also on the country that we're visiting. But as far as a standalone press conference, I just don't have anything to share at this time.
Yet another reporter jumped in, wanting clarification on the decision not to hold a press conference on the president's overseas trip.
Is the decision whether to have a press conference abroad in Ireland a unilateral decision, or are the Irish weighing in on that too?
No, I think I was very clear. I said when it comes to a press conference, standalone press conference, which does not include the country, we just don't have a decision. Well, we're just not going to happen. It's not in the books to happen on this trip.
It's your decision alone, right? The Irish aren't weighing.
I mean, if it's a press conference that the president is leading on his own, yes, it's a standalone. That's why I said a standalone press conference that is not happening on this trip.
I'm just not hearing a reason why you're not having one then, because to not have one here, you're saying it's because it's not just up to us?
No, I didn't say that. I said when it comes to a 2+2, regardless if we're away or regardless if the country's coming here, we do have, that is a discussion that we have with the country, right? That is a conversation that's had, and we do not do that unilaterally. So I was making a comparison. I was laying out that process, which I know every time a head of state visits, or even if we go to another country, this question comes up of a 2+2. And so I was just laying out the process, as I've done many times at this podium. I'm just saying at this time, we do not have a press conference, a standalone press conference for this president.